So you know how many of these congressmen and representatives, they change their names? Yeah, and so I think most people would agree with me on this, that if you have to change your name, and because so many of them do, right? Then you're trying to hide something, or you're at least trying to delay people finding things out about you. Well, this one was a little concerning because of where it may go back to. So I did a video yesterday because this fool had sent me an email back to it because I was asking him about climate, not asking him, telling him he should not be focusing on climate change. That is not the crisis. He didn't hear anything I said in my email, but I wouldn't expect him to. But he did respond back with condescension, and he's all science and he knows best bullshit. Yeah, so there's a couple of very important things to know about Mr. Bill Foster. First of all, Bill Foster isn't his name, but I'll get to that in a minute. But he worked at Fermilab for 25 years. I did videos about Fermilab. Fermilab is outside of Chicago. It's in a town called Batavia, Illinois. It's like in the farmland. They've been around longer than CERN. They're just on a smaller scale. I went on a tour there. I want to say it's 30 years ago, maybe. Because I had lived in the area, and so I went, it was some free tour, and they were smashing atoms together. And no matter, listening to all of the science talk about all the reasons they're doing this, all I could think is, it's so unethical and so irresponsible to smash atoms together. There's like, why would anybody think that's a good idea? But see, scientists, they think they're God. They're all knowing. There's no boundaries. They can do whatever they want. What's really scary about people like him is he thinks that he's all globalist, okay? He's not a surprise. Most of the people that don't represent America are all on board with globalism. But his family line goes a little further, because he has said himself, and I want to read it directly so I don't mess up the quote. I go by the name Bill Foster, but actually my legal name is George William V. Just V, the letter V. George William V. You might ask who George William Foster I was. He was a soldier for the North in the Civil War. He was a commander of one of the first regiments of freed slaves. It was basically killing the army because he insisted that freed slaves under his command had the right to have the same amount of food as the white soldiers. So you can see we've been troublemakers for a long time. What does that make? I'm going to read that again so people understand. He said that his legal name is George William V. And then says, you might ask who George William Foster is. So he goes on to tell us who George William Foster is, but that's not who he is, but he goes by that name. He was involved in the emergency intervention to keep the economy from collapsing. Yeah, he was all part of Dodd-Frank. He supports that they bailed out the banks, okay? Because he, you know what? And that's what he did. That's what they did. They bailed out the banks. So then the banks never have to have any responsibility, right? Because as long as you have deadbeats like this in office who think that they're almighty because they're scientists, they take the country into destruction. But I think it's deliberate. It's deliberate. He also supports Obamacare. Obamacare has destroyed our healthcare system. I work in healthcare. I know it has. It has destroyed what it once was. So he will still prop it up, but he's a bullshitter, just like the rest of them. And he's so misguided, likely because, he is from Harvard after all. But just so people realize, he says in an interview regarding the banking system, the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform Act, that's one of my proudest achievements since we passed that law. There has not been any financial crisis. No, because you people have been bailing the banks out with our tax money. It's a tough thing because a lot of people were unhappy because we interfered in the free market. See, this is what happened. Capitalism can work, but not when you have idiots like this running your government. He admits interfering in the free market. So again, it's a tough thing because a lot of people are unhappy because we interfered in the free market. If the free market is putting half of the houses in neighborhoods in foreclosure, it needs help. No, you do. You need to be removed. You do not know how to do the right thing, and you are not on a quest to help America. And this is from some presentation he gave, I think it was in 2012. Representative Foster plots the relative number of scientists and engineers, lawyers and career politicians in international governing bodies. The U.S. Congress consists mostly of career politicians, explains Foster, while China, for example, consists mostly of engineers. Since winning his seat in 2012, Foster has introduced a scientific perspective to Congress, even if he's careful not to conflate that with his political stance. He makes a point to clarify technical details of issues like the Iran nuclear deals, human genetic engineering, and public key cryptography on cell phones to ensure that Congress makes the most informed decisions possible on highly complicated ethical issues. This man couldn't be ethical if he tried. There's nothing ethical about him. Our genetic engineering, he noted, our ethical paradigm is not set up for it, as the notion of all men are created equal fundamentally cannot handle humans whose genetic traits are pre-picked. Clearly, scientific experts will be invaluable in such consequential issues. No, scientific experts have destroyed the foundation of this country, and you have helped them, but I think it's been deliberate. Because Mr. George William V., does he go back to this? Yes. The British Empire. I would say yes, he does. King George V served as a figurehead for the nations of the British Empire throughout the war. He and his wife, Queen Mary, provided inspiration and support for both the armed forces and the civilian populations through hundreds of official visits and their own family service and self-sacrifice. Is that why Bill Foster changed his name? Is because his line goes back to the very people that were trying to overthrow America, the British Empire. And as I keep saying, what was the British Empire before it was the British Empire? They became the British Empire because Rome took over. And what was Rome? Rome was the Roman Empire. And who put Jesus to death? Well, for 3 days anyway. The Roman Empire. The very same type empire that tried to overthrow America. I wouldn't say Bill Foster is a friend to this country. He's an infiltrator. Because if you have to change your name, then you're trying to hide something. And his statement about his name doesn't make any sense unless you know that your ancestors go back to people that were trying to overthrow this country. How many more of them are in Congress and the House? I think many. Their path will end with destruction, not by the hand of man. Just the nature of the beast that they serve.